Hi, everybody, and thanks for taking time out of your incredibly busy day these days to join us. What we wanted to go over with you is how to rapidly, and I do mean very rapidly, implement a very secure work from home strategy that can be rolled out in very little time without a ton of cost or effort. Now, I'd like for Karen to introduce herself as well. My name's Alan Conboy. Karen?
Thanks, Alan. Hey, everybody. My name is Karen Gondoli, and as Dusty mentioned, I'm the CEO at LeoStream, and I've actually came up via the product team, so I'm very familiar with our solution and how we've been enabling remote access for people for over 15 years. So excited to bring the solution to you, and as Alan said, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Karen. So, agenda top level. Work from home options, what all the choices are to make that happen fast in a world that's saying, hey, get the workforce up and going remotely right now. What remote access done quickly actually looks like without having to make major changes to your current infrastructure at all. What the moving parts are. And then we'll walk you through a live demo of this solution very, very quickly. Okay? Now, with that being said, let's get started. Work from home is a methodology that's been growing in popularity over the course of the last 15 years, really. Historically, it was seen as kind of a perk, etc. But in today's world, it's become mandatory very quickly. Long story made short, this is something that really falls firmly in the category of should be part of DR plans. Now, with that being said, budgets being what they are and folks needing to implement things fast, this is less about looking back than it is about looking forward. What's the right way to get there very, very quickly, regardless of if it's a tiny IT infrastructure operation or large enterprise? So let's start with how folks looked at this from different perspectives historically. The original thought, and you still see this being played out today, is company laptops. Grab laptops, give them to everybody, get them out there into the world. I would posit for a work from home strategy, that is exactly the wrong thing to do in most cases. The reason why is simple. Going out and grabbing a pile of laptops, trying to provision VPN clients onto all of them, trying to provision application space stacks and data onto all of them, and then pushing the corporate network and all of the corporate resources out to the very edge of the edge, namely the workforce home environment, is not only logistically challenging to say the least. Honestly, I would argue that it's, unless you started planning for this years ago, just about impossible. But it is also, well, it's not secure by any stretch of the imagination. Users do things when working from home that they wouldn't do in an office. That opens your networks, your data, etc., up to significant security concerns. Okay? Not to mention the fact that that can run afoul of things like GDPR. Suddenly, that end user has the ability to pull data all the way down to their local area without IT's control. Now, there's several challenges in taking that path, and I've always felt there was a better way to do it. BYOD, also a scary idea, absolutely scary. For the same reason, the only thing you're eliminating is corporate having to go and buy tons of laptops that have become, well, if you'll pardon the term, the toilet paper of the IT world right now, non-existent. Now, even with that, you've still got to be able to walk users through one by one how to implement the VPN clients, all of that stuff. And then you become exposed from a corporate data and resources perspective to everything that already exists on those end users' computers, computing devices. VDI with remote access. Now, VDI was purpose-built to do these kinds of things. It absolutely was, absolutely is. However, to do VDI right takes time. And in today's world, time is the enemy. It absolutely is the enemy. None of us have time to plan, okay, let's figure out what the workflows are and what Golden Master images should be for each and every single one of our users and subgroups, and let's build Golden Master images and implement things like profile managers, etc. You need time to do that rightly. So let's take a look at what using remote desktop protocols over RDP really looks like. Well, if you're taking the BYOD route, regardless of what the endpoint device is, you've got a pile of security concerns, and it's the Wild West. End user home networks, not exactly a paradigm of security. You know, when you're talking about everybody's kids home from school and using devices on the network, on that same network, when you're VPNing that stuff in, things that happen on those endpoint networks become part of your corporate network. Absolutely a bad path to take. The right path to take here is to do exactly the opposite of what folks calling up their resellers and calling up the large infrastructure provider sellers are trying to do right now. They're trying to do exactly the wrong thing. They're reaching out to try and grab as many laptops as they can from wherever and trying to provision VPN clients, etc. That's not what you want to do. Instead of pushing your network out to the edge, out to those truly insecure environments, you want to do exactly the opposite. You want to grab the workforce and virtually put them back at their work at their existing work desktop in the office. Now, the reason I say that, the methodology you want to use here is to provide their existing resource the way it's always been, but do it in a secure way through a browser window that can be reached from anywhere that has internet access, from anything that has a browser. But anything that happens to that endpoint device does not affect the corporate network. Now, to oversimplify, an end user can literally trip off a WannaCry infestation, if you will, on their own endpoint device. It's never going to transition across that browser window into your network. It's just being displayed that way. Now, by taking that approach, by leveraging VDI plumbing to present remote access to the workforce, you accomplish several things. First and foremost, you create an almost instant pipeline for people to get to their work resources without having to move data around, without having to change infrastructure at all. The second thing that you provide there is security. People can continue to work from no matter where they are on whatever device they happen to have available, whether it's a phone, a tablet, a PC, a Mac, it does not matter. You know, Smart Fridge user number 1 can get at his work desktop and get to work, okay? Now, the other benefit here of using VDI plumbing to accomplish this, connection broker, gateway, is you pre-position yourself not just for the emergency, not just for the situation we find ourselves in right this second of needing to provide access, but you've also pre-positioned yourself to solve this problem in the long term. By implementing this style of solution, a month from now, 2 months from now, 6 months from now, you've bought yourself the time to be able to implement VDI properly, to do profile management, to seamlessly transition from that end user's legacy physical desktop to a virtual workload, and do those migrations internally when you have the time to do so, rather than trying to trying to do them in an emergency basis and do it non-disruptively to the workforce, the workflow, and the business. That's why this is the right approach. Now, let's talk about how the pieces work. About 2 years ago, we here at Scale Computing partnered with the original independent connection broker company, LeoStream. Now, LeoStream, and that's why Karen's joining us here today. They understand that a connection broker is more than just a piece of VDI plumbing. What a connection broker really does is connects users to workflows. Okay? It connects people to the work they need to do, regardless of where they are, regardless of what the workflow is, whether it's physical desktops, VDI virtual machines, RDSH sessions, Macs sitting in the environment, etc. Okay? So the way this solution works couldn't be simpler if it tried. It's 2 virtual machines and a port forward. Long story made short. We'll start in the upper right-hand corner, the LeoStream Connection Broker. It's a simple virtual machine. It can run on your HC3 cluster. Simple, fast, easy to stand up. Essentially, it's just a CentOS 7 image that you install and then run a single command on to reach out, grab the broker, and install it. The next piece is the gateway. Also a CentOS 7 virtual machine. Can run on the same HC3 infrastructures that the broker itself is running on, okay? That you also run a single command on that reaches out, grabs the gateway package, installs and configures it. From that point, it's a simple matter of forwarding port 443 from your firewall to the gateway. SSL all the way through. The connection broker, it already knows how to talk to Active Directory. You supplied information about your authentication infrastructure, be it Active Directory or LDAP or NIS, etc. It plugs directly into your existing authentication methods for your workers. Okay? The gateway acts as a pass-through, if you will. It provides those dedicated secure sessions connecting directly to people's existing desktops. People sitting in their offices on Friday went home, they get notification Saturday or Sunday, don't come back Monday morning. You're working from home. Well, the LeoStream agent that normally would be provisioned into a golden master image for traditional VDI can be pushed via GPO in silent mode into every single one of those running desktop machines, bringing them in under management of that same connection broker that's already provisioning VDI or built to provision VDI. It becomes a simple matter then for end users to point a web browser from any device, anywhere, over the open internet, to port 443 HTTPS on your firewall. Just that single port is forwarded to the gateway. Login traffic for authentication is handed to the broker. The broker talks to Active Directory, verifies that user is who they say they are based on credentialing. It sets up a session for that user to their desktop and ships that session back via HTML5 direct to the user. You're talking about something you can set up in less than an hour. Okay? Now, because the data never leaves the corporate network, all the actual work's happening here. It's just being reflected back out to those endpoint devices. What that means is things like California's privacy compliance laws, GDPR, etc. You're staying compliant with them. This is just a browser window. Data isn't being transitioned out of your environment back to those little subnetworks that are highly insecure. Everything happening inside your environment is not being exposed to the things users do at home. Was there a question there? Okay, we'll move on then. Now, question, or before I move on to that, Karen, was there anything you wanted to speak to about this?
No, I think you covered everything. That was great.
Okay. Now, the benefits of taking this approach become very obvious when you start to think about it. You're not having to do data migrations. You're not having to do emergency forklifts into cloud infrastructures. You're not having to set up profile management. You're not having to do any of that. Workers are connecting to their existing desktop infrastructures that they've been using for years. They're connecting directly to their desktop machines, regardless of what they are. They can be Macs, they can be Linux boxes, they can be PCs. It does not matter. The agent runs on all of them, bringing any of them in under management. The flexibility of access becomes unparalleled. Almost everybody has a device, from a gaming console to a smart fridge to a smart TV to a tablet to a phone to a PC to a laptop. Anything with a browser from anywhere with internet access, and they're on their work resources. They're able to get their work done. There's nothing to install, there's nothing for you to push out to your workforce other than an email saying, connect to this link, log in with your Active Directory credentials. This is fast, folks. This is easy, and it gets the job done. Now, technical point of view. Karen, would you like to speak to the connection broker, or would you like me to?
I'm happy to if you want me to jump in here.
Yeah, why don't you? Go ahead.
All right, great. Thanks. So hello, everybody. Again, my name's Karen. So the connection broker, as you see there, it basically is the brains of the operations. It is the central command center where you're going to define pools and policies and protocol plans and all of the different rules that you need to manage the hosted desktop environment that you have. Now, usually when I speak of the connection broker, I do talk a lot about pools and release plans because there's these different VDI workflows that you can manage. You know, right now in the climate the way it is, what the broker can allow you to do is very easily manage the user's personal machines that are in the office, and you can hard assign those to users, and then we will authenticate the user and connect them securely to just their machine from home. Now, one thing I will point out, we've talked a lot about Active Directory authentication, but as your users go remote, the thing that we've seen is very important is multi-factor authentication. And the connection broker does integrate with a number of different types of multi-factor authentication, anything from dual push notices to any identity provider that works with as a Radius server. The broker can essentially act as a Radius client. So this does give you an extra layer of authentication for when those users move outside of your data center. The other thing that I'll just point out briefly, we talk here about audit level tracking, and that's actually a very useful feature in the broker because you as the admin, you will always see when are users logging in, what are they connecting to, how long were they connected, and you can easily download that information, create reports, and really track how well your users are working while they're remote.
Very good. Now, let's talk about the agent. It is a tiny little Windows executable or a Java executable. That means that the agent that normally would go into a golden master image can go into just about anything, bringing just about anything from servers, VDI instances, physical desktops, multiple platforms like I mentioned, Mac, Windows, Linux, BSD, you name it. in under management, making everything reachable, controllable, workable from anywhere. Okay? The agent is the piping inside the network. Now that agent can be provisioned out with a simple domain GPO. Push it out to those running desktops. They got left running when they left the office last Friday. Guess what? That's the hardest part of this whole thing. Now, the LeoStream Gateway. This is the place where it all comes together as far as an end user is concerned. It's a small Linux VM, okay, that you drop in to your cluster, to your environment, on the same network that you've got the broker on. Okay? This happens entirely inside the network. Okay? That gateway is what receives those login requests from out in the world, from browsers, and acts as the plumbing, connecting those users through the connection broker and to the infrastructure that you've already built out. Okay? The only thing it requires is port 443 to be forwarded to its IP address. That's it. Very, very simple. Long story made short, you install the broker, tell it about Active Directory. We'll run through this in just a second. Install the gateway, tell it about the broker, tell the broker about the gateway. Provision your agents, assign the users to their desktops. Port forward. You now have a web-facing IP or URL that your entire workforce can simply point a browser at. You can implement multiple gateways and load balance. The infrastructure is already built for that. It's actually very simple. Now here's the cool part. This is the exact same infrastructure pieces and licensing that already work and have already been built for doing real VDI long-term in your HC3 environment. It's 2 years ago, the LeoStream team built in native support for Scale's entire API stack to be able to do traditional VDI as well. You know, reach into a Scale cluster, discover golden master images, automatically create the desktop instances, bring them in under management, join them to Active Directory, etc. This makes that transition to VDI simple because it's already there. And the licensing is the same. Okay? Now, enough talk. Let's see it in action. Right here, I have a Scale cluster. I have several of them, as you can see. Connection broker and the gateway, simply 2 VMs. Right here, simple Linux VM, gets downloaded, installed. Okay. Download CentOS 7, install it as a virtual machine. Log in, run a single command. Okay. Running that command downloads the broker package, installs it. Same exact story with the gateway virtual machine. Okay. Once you've downloaded that guy, run a similar command on him. That downloads and installs the gateway package. Okay. Run a second command on the gateway to tell it about the IP address of the broker it should be working with. From that point, you simply point a browser at the connection broker itself, log in, and go to work. Essentially, you're just going to run through the setup steps here on the left. Going to stop right here at downloads. Here's the agents that you're interested in. You can grab them right from here. Like I mentioned a couple of times, once you've downloaded the executable, you can push it out with a GPO. Very, very simple. Now, from here, let's jump forward to setup. First thing you're going to do is tell your broker about your authentication infrastructure. Okay? Now, if you're running like most folks with Active Directory, that's a very simple thing. Okay? Simply say Active Directory, give it the server name, name of the domain, IP address of the DC, credentials of a user that's allowed to search for users, and if you're going to be implementing True VDI, or might be as you move forward in time when things become less panic-driven, give it credentials of a user that can join machines to Active Directory. You can use administrator, you don't have to. Where in your subtree, if you have a very large domain, you want user login searches to begin, allow user logins from this authentication server and go. Now, if you're not using Active Directory, and yes, over the past several days, I've had several folks implement this that aren't, or are using a mixture of LDAP and Active Directory, simply choose the one that's appropriate for your environment. Multiples are supported here. Okay? Now, from there, we're going to jump down to gateways. Provided you've already provisioned out your gateway, created it, and told it about the broker, you're simply going to come in here and add gateway. Give your gateway a name. Give it the external IP or domain name that you're going to be forwarding 443 from, and the internal IP address of the gateway. This really isn't difficult at this point at all. You now have a gateway talking to your broker. Now, when you push out the agents, that's going to create an interesting center type called enrolled desktops. Enrolled desktops are the physical desktop machines that you've pushed agents into. For example, here I've pushed one into a physical desktop in my environment, a machine called Christian-HP. Okay? Now, let's run down here so we can take a closer look at that machine specifically. I push the agent in. He shows up here under management. One of the simplest things I can do, especially in a small environment, is simply come into him. The agent reports back in what the MAC address is, what OS it is, etc. It is what provides all of the fundamental administrative level control to you as administrators. And I switch him from a policy assigned from a pool to hard assigned to a specific user, and simply pick the user from Active Directory from a drop down or start searching. There it is. Okay. There's other ways to do this, and Karen can speak to those. More advanced ways to do this, those assignments to desktops based on larger implementations, etc. It really isn't hard. I set him to available, and believe it or not, I'm done, provided I've already done my port forward. I simply tell my user, hey, point a browser at that URL or IP address that's being port forwarded to the gateway. And when he does that, he's going to be presented with this simple browser interface. Type in his domain credentials like he's done sitting down at his desk for years and hit sign in. He'll be presented with the desktops that are available to him, that you've made available to him. Now, in this case, this particular user, there's his physical desktop. Okay? It's literally a desktop machine sitting about 6 feet behind me here in the office. I've also already provisioned VDI desktops for him. All he has to do is click on the machine that he needs to be connected to, and it pops up right here in a browser window, just like it always has, without you having to move anything. It's that simple, folks. It really, really is. It's not hard to implement. Now, for existing Scale folks, we have taken the time over here at Scale to go ahead and pre-create 2 downloadable images that already have the broker and the gateway installed, that that you can import directly into your scale clusters and have this thing up and going in no time flat. For folks that haven't already implemented scale or have other concerns, it's a simple matter of grabbing CentOS 7, doing a server install. Me personally, I do server with GUI because it's a very lightweight implementation. Doesn't need much, but it makes it a little easier. Okay. Running that single command to import the broker, import the gateway, and go. Your main takeaways here is by following this path, you're able to implement in an hour what would otherwise take weeks or longer in a highly secure way that doesn't open you up to very bad things. By very bad things, I mean the things that users do in their home networks that they wouldn't do in the office network. Kids sharing machines, etc. All of that becomes a non-issue. These are the same exact tools that will allow you to roll into full VDI, already built in natively to support your infrastructure. This is much faster, much more stable, and much easier to implement than legacy VPN. And this is a highly streamlined and integrated solution. Now, we can talk about what that future of provisioning VDI looks like, if you'd like. This is simple, fast, and affordable. But one of the things that we are doing right now is giving out for people to get past the, I've got to get some workers up and going right now today. We're simply giving out 30-day licenses, okay? 5 users, get them connected, get them going. We can extend if need be, etc. We just wanted to get this solution out to you that need it the fastest way we could possibly do it. Karen, did you have any final thoughts as well?
Sorry, had to find my mute button. I've been busy answering questions. Lots of great questions from everybody. But no, I think this was a fantastic presentation, and like I said, great questions. Really excited to see people really thinking about the solution and looking forward to helping you all.
We've got lots of folks answering the tons of questions coming in the chat windows. We will keep this live long enough to get through those questions. If we don't get to you, if we missed answering your question, etc., email us, reach out to us, give us a call. We will happily answer whatever questions you want. This is something that you could literally have stood up, running, working before today's over. It literally is that simple and straightforward, folks. With that being said, I want to thank you for taking some time, the one thing none of us really have today, out of the day that you've got laid out in front of you to take a look at something that I believe can really make work from home very simple, very straightforward. Anybody that would like to see a live interactive demo of this directly to your browser at home, give us a call. Heck, I'll put you directly on my interface from wherever you sit. It takes no time whatsoever. All right? Thanks again.